Obviously, you know about the king of R&B, R.Kelly, sitting behind bars for 30 years for sex trafficking, racketeering, and the list goes on.
And he would be in the bed with Aaliyah and her mother at the same fucking time. I mean, I don't really want to hear that shit, but that's the fucking truth.
So let's go back. We were talking about the studio, and had you ever seen what they claimed they saw in the Surviving R. Kelly documentary? They talked about, you know, girls being in all these rooms, mattresses being on the floor, a bucket being in the corner. You never saw any of that.
No. So like I said, that was not at the studio that we went to. You got to remember, when I came around, it was at the end of his career. Like I said, I always describe it as like the Titanic. The smokestacks was the only thing above water. So
he basically, for those 8 months, he was a saint.
Yeah, he had to be. I mean, it's like, look,
8 months, he just decided, I'm gonna clean it up.
Jesus is coming. Act the part. You know what I mean? You know, so it's Judgment Day. So that's essentially what it was. I mean, but it started unraveling. I mean, it really did. But as I alluded to, it was the women in the documentary. I never met any of them. I mean, we're in court right now. None of them know me. Mm-hmm. They've never seen me before, never talked to me before, any of that. This happened way before I came on board. So everything that you guys are referencing in this documentary that was built was created on people who knew him throughout his career. I came at the very end.
So why are you being sued by one of them?
I'm being sued by 4 or 5 of them. It ain't just one of them.
Why?
We might.
Because they all...
It's a lot of stuff you can't say, obviously.
Well, no, I can say, honestly, at this particular point, a civil case is different from the criminal. My criminal cases are over with. The civil cases are still going on now. They're suing me because he's broke. He has no more money. And it's like they're going to get something from somewhere. That's essential.
But they've never met you, never saw you, don't know who you are.
Every last one of them.
Why come for you?
Every last one of them have said that in court. It's on transcripts. They don't know me, never seen me before, none of this stuff. But because of this December 4th event, that's allegedly I'm the person that called in the threat, they all have now mysteriously got PTSD. Mm-hmm. And, of course, they were all diagnosed with PTSD from this lawyer who hired her, hired her expert friend as a psychologist to interview them for 30 minutes. And in 30 minutes, in one interview over the phone, a video phone call, she determined they all have PTSD. So now, collectively, everything that had happened in their whole life, them having shell shock, they can't eat, they got picking disorders and all this shit, is my fault. They're not even suing R. Kelly. They're suing me. Now, the whole goddamn complaint is about R. Kelly. Everything in the complaint is about, this is the same thing that the prosecutor did in his case. They said Don Russell, for not even a sentence, and then they went into R. Kelly's life and talked about all this shit, and then segued into me again. So they wrote me into his career back to 2008, when I just came in 2018. Mm-hmm. You read the complaint, it reads as if I've been in this man's life since 2008 working with him, when I just came in 2018. So that's the bullshit that they did to make it seem or appear as if I've been working with him that long in order to push this damn civil lawsuit through for $50 million.
Could you pay that lawsuit? If the judgment was granted on the women's side, would you be able to afford that?
Hell no. No, fuck no. I couldn't pay nothing. First of all, they can grant whatever the fuck they want. They can't get nothing I don't have. That's first of all. They're not taking shit from me. I don't know them people. I have not cost them a fucking dime. The biggest victim in this motherfucker is me. They didn't lose nothing. They volunteered to be in a relationship with that man. After he pissed on them, shitted on them, and all the nasty, vile, degradable things that they did, they volunteered. They got on a plane. They flew across country to meet his ass. They over a year relationships with every last one of them. So how is it that I caused that problem? Right. How you throwing that shit on me when you did that on your own accord, whether you was 15, 14, 25, 45? You did that shit. You volunteered to be in that relationship with that man all those years. He put you through the worst shit. You did it because you thought you was going to win his heart over. And when he said bye, you felt fucked up. What the fuck does that got to do with me? It has nothing to do with me. I came way after all that shit. Don't know none of you. The only way I met you was through lawsuits that you filed. So to me, I'm a business owner. I've been sued by ex-employees before. So to me, this is nothing but somebody trying to get some money. That's literally what it was, because I met a true victim, and I'll tell you her response to what happened. And it wasn't nothing like these motherfuckers, but the fact of the matter is, they volunteered. It's like if you keep going to see a motherfucker and you getting the same result every time you go see him, that's on you. That ain't on him. One of them flies from Texas to New York, then came back and flew to another place to meet, came back, flew to another place, sending them pictures from phones in Texas of her new boobs that she got done and shit, that he paid for, obviously. From Texas, though. And then got on the plane and flew to go see his ass. You had the option to stay your ass in Texas. If he treated you shitty the first time you went to go see him and supposedly gave you herpes and shit, why the fuck did you go back and stay in a relationship with his ass a whole year? What's the point? Why did you keep doing that? And why the fuck am I responsible for somebody who didn't even know you, wasn't even fucking with him then, had my own life way the fuck over there, didn't know what the fuck he was doing, didn't care. You gonna sue me now? Because this one event has prompted you to lose your mind and got PTS fucking D because you went to a venue to talk about what he did to you, and now you got shell shocked because somebody called in a threat, which it was never announced. I sat in the trial. It was about me. They said it at the fucking venue. They didn't announce what happened because they didn't want to create a herd effect. Right. They didn't want people running out tearing their fucking building up. It was not on any of the fucking papers in New York that it was a fucking threat. You talking about New York. Twin Towers, all that shit. Bomb threat in New York gonna get all type of fucking coverage. Mm-hmm. It was Lifetime's fucking event. Why the fuck didn't they come after me? So, no, somebody said that shit, and it was an informant who did that shit, who they put inside to stir all this shit up. The same informant's cousin blew up one of them girls' fucking car. They tried to connect me with this motherfucker. I don't know him. There's no history of me ever knowing this motherfucker. Michael Williams, he's doing time now. But he was connected to this fucking, I can't say her name, but anyway, she was a publicist, first for Lifetime, which is how we met her. She claimed she was involved with worked for Lifetime, and she was hearing all these stories from these girls, and they was lying. She was sick of hearing it, so she wanted to send the information over to us to help our side out. She first met a guy named Julius, who Julius trying to hit on her. So then she found out that some guy named Don was in charge, which is me. So she found me on Facebook. Don, I'm trying to get y'all information on this stuff for Lifetime, all these girls online. So she just started sending shit. So this is the girl who I would meet, and I told Rob stay away from her, because ain't no telling, she's too all over the place. And she seemed like she's the one to get next to you. She's the one that wrote the book Daddy's Little Girl, or whatever, Daddy's Little, whatever the shit it was called, which is all a fucking lie. This girl was starting fires every fucking place. She was recording, she'd went and fucked Tim Savage or Angelo Curry, one of the two of them, recorded all of their conversations, sending them to me, sending all of the shit that Lifetime was saying they knew that the girls was lying to me, and I'm letting Rob hear all of this shit. So I'm like, this shit is a hot mess. So her cousin, who was in New York with a fucking gun on him, because in the event Surviving R.Kelly in number 3, the mother of the Rogers chick, her mother is on there talking about how the guy with cash had a gun on him. That was her cousin, the same one who set Azriel's car on fire. This is the same guy who called the venue the day of the fucking, just like, I'm on the phone on hold, he calls, we find this shit out in trial. I didn't know this before the trial. So why is it that somebody who spent $5,000 to get a fucking lawyer to draft a fucking cease and desist order, who would have preferred the event to go on because we would have checked the hell of a bag? Trademark, copyright infringement. Would call in a threat. And that's not anything that you resort to. But this motherfucker who's trying to set me up, who on multiple occasions tried to set me up, yeah, if it was a threat, that's the person who did the damn threat. Because this motherfucker been setting cars on fire and all this shit, trying to make it seem like R. Kelly and his camp are ordering this shit when him, and then the girl, the publicist, the same publicist chick, did an interview where she talked about how they used me. I've been working for the FBI this whole time. We used Don. Don was a pawn. So they did all this shit. They did all this shit because, one, you have to have an enterprise. Everybody in Rob's camp cooperated. I was the only one that told him, no, I'm not cooperating. Oh, you're not going to cooperate. So we're going to spank your ass. That's exactly what happened. It had nothing to do with me not cooperating. I don't know them heifers. I never met one of them a day in their fucking life. They have all said it in trial right now. We in trial right now. I got to be back on the 17th. The last day they interviewed everybody. Have you met Mr. Russell? I'm representing myself. No. Have you ever seen him before? No. Have you ever came across him? No. So why the fuck you sue me for $50 million? Because of this fucking event? Well, if you were sitting in court, I won the case because the guy that talked to the Kresnicki who testified as the only person I talked to stated it wasn't him. He said it was a guy from New York, I can tell from the accent that he had in his voice, that called this threat in. We've got all of the 911 calls, everything that shows him calling. He called his father to find out what he should do before he called 911. How much of a threat could that have been? You call your father before you call 911, and then you go down and talk to security and all that shit, and you decide, okay, you know what? Let's go and let's go and let everybody out of here. But we're gonna do it peacefully because we don't want them to tear up our fucking place. So all of that's on record. What I agreed to saying is on record. Now, I did not agree on record, and I pled guilty to what I agreed to. What I agreed to that's on the fucking transcripts right now was when they asked me, Mr. Russell, on December 4th, did you purposely mean to intimidate Mrs. Rogers? I said, okay, my intimidator, what do you mean? What did I say? No, the first one was that you threatened her. I said, okay, by threatening her, can you repeat to me what I said? I want to agree to what I said. And I said, let's take it a little farther back. When she called me, because I didn't call her. I never had any contact information on them. Cash gave them my number. She called me. And that's on record. So they said, when you spoke with her and you threatened that you would say this exactly right. You threatened her stating that you would file charges against her if she continued to reach out to you. I said, yes, that's what I said. That's what the threat was. I threatened her with filing charges against her. Then they read the next one. Mr. Russell, did you or did you not mean to intimidate Mrs. Rogers when you spoke with her on the phone? I said, okay, well, can we go over what was said that was so intimidating? I said, well, and let's go back. When she called me and cursed me out, first, I responded by saying, yes, you have a potty mouth to be the first lady of a church, and you really need to be careful who you calling with this shit. And I hung up on her ass. I own my own shit. I don't desire, nor did I invite that call. She called me, so she deserved to get a response for what she called me on. The last one, did you purposely mean to embarrass the other Rogers girl when you sent nude pictures of her to Lifetime? I said, okay, let's see these pictures, because I need to see exactly what it is that I sent to Lifetime. I don't have any nude pictures of her. Where would I get nude pictures of this girl from, right? So they brought the first picture. I said, no, I never had that picture. That was a trick. I said it was a PowerPoint presentation that was sent to Lifetime. Could I see that? They brought it down. I said, okay, yes, this was drafted in my office, but I didn't put it together, honestly. My mother actually put it together. And it was her and Robert. Rob gave her the conversation between him and her, talking about she wanted to end the lawsuit. She didn't want to go any further. And she just wanted him to fly up to see her. He didn't answer the phone because I guess he was busy, and she went nuts. So that's when the shit hit the fan. So other things were pictures that were cropped that she had sent Robert, personal shit, stuff to women, and they boo, whatever. Everything was cropped. There was nothing showing any fucking nudity. Facebook is not going to allow it. YouTube is not going to allow it. The same video that they're speaking of is still up on YouTube today. If it was nude pictures, they would have took the shit down, period. And all the video said was, the bank is closed. The dude ain't got no fucking money. Stop suing him. So we sent that to Lifetime. We sent that to her attorney that was suing, and we sent that to the court. So that was as much as it went. And it wasn't me. It was done from my office. So what I said to them was, because it was done from my office, I will take full responsibility for it. But no, it was not intended to embarrass her. My office was simply negotiating with Lifetime an alternative called Surviving Lies to expose who the women, now that they knew who the women were. And I said, but if it did embarrass her, my apologies. And that was it. That's what I pled guilty to. Those are the charges that I pled guilty to. So if you read the transcripts, that's exactly what's in there.
So you didn't create the Surviving the Lies Facebook page that showed nude pictures of girls.
There was never any nude pictures ever being shown. We never had any.
Got it.
Surviving the Lies was Cash. Cash Jones did that. I did Surviving Lies, but she did Surviving the Lies. She was taking forever to come out with. I said, Cash, you got all this stuff that you done, and these pictures that you, whatever you done got from these people. What's taking you so long to put it out? So I sent her $500, which is noted to put this, because she's like, Dom, my money's low. I got to pay for this, which was a fucking lie. She didn't need it. I got to pay for the hosting and all this stuff. I said, okay, fine. I'll send you the money. I sent it to her via Cash App or something like that. And she never put it out. So what I did was open up a Facebook page called Surviving Lies, and we put out the same PowerPoint presentation that we sent over to Lifetime. There was no nude pictures ever on there.
So now this is the part in
And you can
Surviving
search,
R.Kelly where she said that someone asked to meet with her. It was the mom and the dad.
Right.
Yeah.
This is the part we're
And they
talking
went into
about,
a
right?
restaurant.
And they
Yeah.
went into a
The guy had the
restaurant.
gun, right.
That's not
and so
you.
now are you the person that had the gun?
No, that's Cash and her uncle, a cousin, the same guy who set the cars on fire.
So you're not the person that
I
had the
wasn't
gun.
even in New York. I was in Chicago.
Okay.
I never went to New York. I've never been
Well,
to New
I mean, I'm just clearing it up because there were rumors that was you.
No, hell no. That was
Okay.
her and her cousin.
So I want to go back to something you said, because when you talked about the Aaliyah portion and Early asked you the question, did you know he had a problem with girls? You said there were two instances. You said the Aaliyah situation. What was the other situation?
So it was a girl that I met in, excuse me. I met in Chicago. We were, it was God, the universe. I'm headed home one day from the office, and I'm driving and I light a cigar, and this girl next to me is laughing, and we both in traffic, headed west, and I peeked over at her, and I rolled over like, what's funny? I thought she was laughing at me lighting a cigar, because it's a big cigar, it's a gorilla finger. I'm like, what's funny? And she was like, no, I'm on my Bluetooth. She was talking to somebody, and she was like, I said, oh, my bad, I'm all up in your business, whatever. So I ended up, shooting my shot at her or whatever be the case, and we exchanged numbers. She was like, I'm in real estate. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, let's talk. I just got a building, and that goes back to how I benefited from Rob. My investor not to get off the subject, when our lease was ending in the office, he was losing the studio, my investor gave me a 57,000 square. He didn't give it to me. He gifted my nonprofit with a 57,000 square foot building on the west side of Chicago. He owned it. It was in demo, and it took a few dollars to get it back off demo. But that's why I say no, because that building is what we're building this new whole oasis off of today. So indirectly I benefited, but not directly from him. So getting back to Nicole, we exchanged numbers, and then we talked later on. We went out a couple of times. She was in real estate, and she actually was one of the person that was helping me find financing for the building. Nothing ever came through because of COVID. But one day we were at the Polsky Center, which is a place I had this temporary office space before we moved into a new one, and she was we were talking about it. Me and my mom was in the car. She was in the back. This is after I had told her that I was working with him. And she was like, we were saying, no, we got to get this done. We got to send this off. We were going over our game plan. And my mom got out the car to go into a Whole Foods, and she was like, Don, he is guilty as fuck. And the conviction in her voice, I was like, what you mean by that? Talk to me. What's going on? And that's when she broke everything down to me. And it was up until then, I had no fucking clue about anything. She was like, Don, listen. Homeland Security contacted me because, and I didn't participate, I didn't cooperate with them because, one, I went after him. She was like, I was dating 25 and 30-year-old dudes when I was young. My father shot this dude climbing out my window. So I remember going to the school and Miss McLean and telling her, I want to hook up with dude because Miss McLean knew I was a singer and she was in music. So anyway, she hooked up with Rob. She was 14. She started going to the studio. Shortly after that, they started messing around. She wrote some of his music.
At 14?
At 14. She was there all the time. she's the one that explained to me that Battery Studio, he had rooms, and he had his Fab Five, like the basketball Fab Five, Michigan. So he had his Fab Five, and every one of them was underage. And he was like, I was like, okay. And she was like, and he would leave us, and we would all stay voluntarily. You know, some of them, she said most girls were scared to leave because they knew they would get replaced. So they didn't want to leave, and, you know, somebody else took their spot. And she said then outside of the rooms were other girls hanging out that they weren't the top of the line girls, but they was just girls he had fun with. I'm like, okay. And then she's like, when he would come back, we would play games like musical chairs. And musical chairs was everybody would walk around a chair, and the last girl without a chair would have to go in the room with all the rest of the girls, engage in, you know, activity with him. So I'm like, okay. I'm still listening to it like, okay, this is all horrible shit. So anyway, she's like, you know, so I did that for him for years, like the little games like that, you know, and she's like, you know, and when I got a little older, she was like, I had to stop because I was too old for him. And she had a daughter, and she had started moving forward with her career in real estate, and she realized she wasn't going to benefit from being around him. And she said, you know, she found a nice husband. She got married, had a daughter. Career was jamming in real estate. And she said, but this is when I realized what R.Kelly did to me after I got married. I was like, what? She was like, well, I go out at night. I got the perfect husband now, beautiful daughter, and I go find multiple people to fuck and sleep with because my sex drive is so high because of what he did to me as a 14-year-old that having one person, a sexual experience, ain't enough for me. I got to have multiple people. So when I heard that, I broke out like, that is the problem right there. And I don't hear any of these motherfuckers talking about that. The effect of how they are now as a result, that's PTSD if you ask me. He did something that traumatized the shit out of him, and now she's got to sneak out on her husband looking for 4 or 5 women to fuck on because her husband ain't enough. So now she's married to a man and a woman because they can't satisfy her sexually because of what R. Kelly did to her. Problem.
Do you feel bad for any of the victims?
Fuck yeah. Somebody that's going through that, hell yeah. That's disgusting. I stopped working for him right after that. Not for him, with him. I was done. I'm like, wow. After hearing that, the shit with Aaliyah was supposed to be 12 when they first started fucking. I was done after that. I'm like, you know what? This shit here is some sick shit. I went to California, and some people know that shit. I was done, and I had a lot of his shit. So, like, you know, I would fly back to make sure stuff was getting transitioned back to him, but I was done working with him after that.
You didn't have the tapes, did you?
What tapes?
Had you ever seen the tapes, these sex tapes that he supposedly recorded?
He's had a catalog of sex tapes that he watched.
I have his catalog of music. I had it up until Sony just confiscated. I had all of his masters. And I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. I didn't have them. I know who had them because we negotiated. It was a company who was supposed to be shooting a documentary that was supposed to come out before Lifetimes. And I negotiated that deal. And when I found out what happened, I went back and canceled the shit. And that was it. And they because they put money up, those masters stayed in their care until they got paid back, which they never got paid back. So they lost about $1 million that they invested too.
So let's fast forward to today. So of course we know,
and we're talking about masters of music,
right?
Not none of those other shit. Yeah.
Right.
So let's fast forward to today. We know this is your wife, Alicia. She reached out to me via social media and said, "Hey, you know, I would like for you to interview my husband. He wants to clear his name." Earlier today, you said something. You said, and we know, you know, we spoke about this earlier. You did the interview with Tasha K. And I guess it sounds like you were. I saw the interview. I watched the interview because I wanted to prepare for this interview. And to me, it looked like you were holding back in that interview. I mean, a lot of people, even in the comments, were like, "Well, he's really not saying anything." You know what I mean? It was almost like, "What's the point of this interview?" And you said earlier that, you know, you were in trial, you know, and the case was pending. And then today you said, "Fuck it, I don't give a fuck no more."
Well,
so my question is, why are we here today? What you want to clear your name? What is it that you want to say
that clears your name?
That clears your name.
Well, one, I mean, first, I've never been his manager. Now, I did things that managers would do because there was nobody else to get it done. And I thought it would help as far as the investment. I mean, you know, I'm not one of those guys that, I mean, shit, my work ethic is second to none. I mean, when I get on something, I don't know how to come up off of it until it's done. So the plan was to get the music out on the platform. Never happened. I mean, I still got the records now. I could put them out if I wanted to. But the fact of the matter is, I was never his manager. I own my own business. I've always owned it. I was only in his immediate, like, circle for, I'm not going to say circle, his presence for 8 months. You know, everybody's writing me in all the way back, and the way the story is being told with the media, which started at the prosecutor's office. And it started with that goddamn complaint that they wrote me into this man's career all the way back to 2008 when I was not in his shit at all. I was nowhere close to him. I don't know any of them damn survivors, the victims, whatever you want to call them. I don't know any of them. I mean, so I want to clear that up. I didn't threaten anybody. I was literally going about protecting my investment. I didn't cooperate with the authorities because I'm in Chicago. And at that time, it was at the height of stuff. I don't want to be involved in that shit. I got brands to protect, family to protect, kids to protect. I didn't want them in that shit. That's why I used the name Colin Dunn, an alias name, to keep myself out of the shit. So that's, you know, that's the, you look at anybody who gets into some shit, it's like me and you friends, right? And I've been knowing you 20, 30 plus years. We met, you know, we got this badge and we was in Boy Scouts together, right? And you got out of Boy Scouts, I did with the Silver Stars. I don't know if that exists or not. I'm just making this shit up, right? But we both got out of it with that, right? So we vowed we're going to be boys, whatever we go off and do. And 20 years later, I see you out on your yacht is going down in the middle of the ocean, and you out there peddling water and shit, trying to stay afloat, and hollering and shouting. There ain't nobody else around you, but I happen to just catch a glance at you. I dive in the water and I swim my ass, and you see me. I'm hollering back and forth. You still saying, yeah, come help. Swim out there and I come get to you and shit. And when you get to you, you say, man, I'm cut and I'm bleeding out. I'm like, oh shit. And then I look underwater and it's fucking Moby Dick, Jaws, piranhas, all these horrible motherfuckers finna tear your ass apart. And then you say, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about that shit too. That's fucked up of you. You should have said, nigga, stay your ass ashore. It's looking real bad out here for me, right? That's what he did. I got my ass out there in this shit. And he didn't even tell me. I had to go searching through shit, finding shit, and then bringing it to him like, bro, is this for real?
So is this why you called him a manipulator?
Yeah.
Because earlier
You talked about
you
the
said
signature.
he was a manipulator. You talked about the signature. What's the significance of all of that?
Well, I mean, it's a whole bunch of that. I mean, obviously, this whole thing is about women he manipulated, obviously. I mean, and that's the whole duration of it. He's not just a singer. He's a fucking actor. He can get on stage. He has a hell of a performance. That's not just one-sided. He's not just selling albums. He's selling out shows too. I mean, so when you take all that and you bundle it up, this is a guy who has a gift of getting what he wants from people. You know, and at that particular time, he didn't have anybody. And I was the closest and smartest thing to him that he trusted. So, yeah, he opened the door, which he should have said, Don, listen, I'm about to be charged with fucking on 14-year-olds. And I actually do have a problem with myself because as a kid, I was fucked on at 7. My sister, my father, my grandfather is my father. All these things he should have told me and gave me full disclosure before I made a decision to go forward. You don't let me get out here, we didn't started this relationship and shit, and then find out you've been molested at 7, and that's what's creating this hypersexual motherfucker that's fucking on everybody else at 7, 14 or whatever. No, it's not right, bro. I mean, literally, all these things that you find out on the fly, that shit's not cool. Give a motherfucker, let him know what he getting himself into in the beginning. And that's the part about it that I could not say throughout my and his trial. I was never told any of that shit by him. I mean, and I kept that shit to myself because, one, he is on trial. I've already been told if I say anything about the fucking trial, they pulling both my bonds and taking my ass to jail. I couldn't reach his lawyers, nobody, and tell nobody shit. So it's like, I'm in this position right now. I really got to be careful. And because I didn't cooperate, you know what? Let's spank this motherfucker and let this RICO thing be him and Robert. So now I'm the enterprise. So you have to write a complaint writing me into his career all the way back so you can prove that he's part of this enterprise. Where's all the motherfuckers that was in videos that got 20% of them fucking checks from management and all that shit. The ones who walked them bitches in. The one who did all that shit that you did. Every one of them heifers can point out anybody. They can't point out me. Where's any of them motherfuckers? Where they at? Why are none of them motherfuckers locked up with his ass? Huh? They cooperated. They told the fucking FBI what they needed to fucking hear. They got it out of him, and that's what they helped them build that fucking case against his ass. So here me, not knowing any of that shit existed, comes in thinking I'm finna get some music, put it on the platform, make $16 million fucking dollars. We're gonna blast off into the sunshine. I can clean this shit up, and we good. Because I didn't know none of that shit existed. It's like, whoa. Well, then I just get hit over the fucking head. So, I mean, that's the whole thing about it that people don't know. I didn't get into this shit knowing any of that existed. And I'd had them, that'd be different. They cannot prove by any fucking means that I had any contact with that dude before 2018 and after 2019 June. Period. I was in California, on with my life. I did an interview outside of Biggs, and this was at the beginning of when him started to part ways. I said he deserves to be, it was when they did the O.J. Simpson chase and shit. And I said he deserves to be surrounded by psychologists first. Examine his brain, how he did that shit with music, with all the challenges he went through. He was molested by his sister. I said that shit on all the major networks. How is that somebody who's who's one of his yes men? Ain't nobody else ever said that shit. His own brother on the same show said, Don told me he deserved to be right where he is. Did his brother not say that on Surviving R.Kelly?
He did. Mm-hmm.
So how is that somebody who's a yes man, but yet I said that? I'm acknowledging this motherfucker got problems, and I'm getting the fuck away from him. But because I didn't cooperate with the authorities, and all of his other guys who I had exposed was stealing from him, that motherfucker there, that's who you need to get, Don Russell. You know why? Because had he not went to jail, we were finna sue all their asses. He had lawsuits against everybody. So the one motherfucker who uncovered that shit was me. That nigga need to be gone too. That's why that shit happened. But I didn't know, I wasn't going in to uncover any of that shit. My goal was to get him his motherfucking ownership back of his music, put that shit out on this platform, and sing Kumbaya from that point forward. It was none of the other shit that transpired from that.
So when we spoke over the phone prior to this interview, you said, I'm going to say names that will blow your mind. What were you referencing?
I think I said a few of them. I mean, we talked Leah, Jay-Z. I mean, it's pointless for me to bring up a lot of shit that I was not standing in there next to. I mean, I know about, and there's certain people, like, you think about Aaliyah, you think about that whole situation, that's still not at rest. I mean, the greatest thing that happened is God took her away from them evil-ass people. Her mother was one, her father was the other one, and her uncle was the damn tip of the spear. And I'll say that shit. I asked Rob, why don't you expose Barry? Don't wake a sleeping giant. Fuck a sleeping giant. Like, for real, dog, God is the only giant you need to rely on, first of all. If this motherfucker knew you was sick, meaning you had issues, and instead of him going to find you help, he benefited off that shit, he's a fucking predator. That's the predator. Like, seriously, he knew Rob was molested because it was in his contract with Jive. It was a whole bunch of provisions in that initial contract that Barry Hankerson had to fucking sit down and go through with Jive before they signed Rob. How's it that? Rob didn't do that shit, Barry did it. So he knew he had issues. Why didn't he get his ass a psychologist or somebody to sit down and walk through the fact that Rob had been fucked on by his kid, his sisters and shit at 7 years old? Barry used to go to Rob's motherfucking house and sit down with his mom and act and she felt like Barry was his father. So she trusted him with her, or him with him.
Do you feel like R.Kelly would have been the musical genius he was if he had not had those traumatic experiences in his life? Because we know a lot of his music clearly
reflected
his life.
Yeah, he came along at a time where sex sold. Sex sold. Yeah, everybody forget the whole generation where they started putting slight nudity on TV and kissing and all that shit. That was his era.
So would R.Kelly be R.Kelly without those experiences?
He wouldn't be R.Kelly. He might be some kind of other Kelly, but I mean, Robert Kelly, I don't know. It came up with another name for him, but he would be a genius as far as musically, regardless, because that was a part of his makeup. Now, would he be talking about sex on the couch? I mean, on the tables and all that shit, and all maybe in the bed making love? His lyrics may have changed. I don't know.
Well, I'm referencing that too because in the video, there's a part where his brother talks about him explaining to him and expressing to him, looking at a poster of himself, saying,
Yeah,
that motherfucker is the shit. And he basically was saying R. Kelly and Robert Kelly
Are two different people.
Yeah.
Now, you knowing him personally, would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, R. Kelly is a brand. Robert is the person that works for the R. Kelly brand. Yeah. It's like Nike.
Was it like two different personalities?
Was
though?
it like two different? Was it like working for two
Like a
different people?
mental, like, you know,
Like-
people have mental issues. It's like
Switch.
one person and another person.
Well, that's any actor. Denzel Washington, when he goes on and he does them beautiful movies, is not the same motherfucker at home. I mean, yeah, so that's, yeah, you get into your character, your role. I mean, the biggest perpetrator in a lot of this shit is Sony. They put out that fucking music. They approved his song charts. So if he had all these songs and shit that you knew, and he had to have all these extracurricular activities that they knew about going on, they fueled that shit by giving them the contract and all the money to all these promissory notes and shit.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is because a lot of times when you see situations like this, you know, there have been cases where a person will get off because even when they're doing lie detector tests and several things like that, they really do switch into another person. And so, do you feel like, I mean, that's why I'm asking you being in his presence, have you ever seen instances where he was another person?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was two.
I mean, I heard you say earlier he was a manipulator.
And you talked about the signature, which
Right.
you
You
said
talked
was
about
a-
the signature.
Yeah.
You said he was manipulating that.
Yeah.
So, like,
it was an instance.
were there two R. Kellys
Yeah.
to your...
Well, we would be down there watching the game. You know what I mean? It could be the fucking whoever, the Hawks and the fucking Bulls, and we would be talking about, you know, man shit and cigars and shit, and all of a sudden he'd disappear, and you be like, we talking like, whatever, he was in the bathroom still, whatever. Next thing you know, you hear doom, 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 doom. That motherfucker upstairs, he done went fucking. He up like what started with that? All men down here, and this nigga got horny. Went upstairs, he fucking.
Did he like men? Because that was alleged in.
I never seen it.
You've heard that though, I'm sure.
I've heard it, but I've never seen anything like that. Yeah, no, I've never heard any stories about that. There was one story. I'm sorry, no, there was one story that his brother told me about. His publicist, his stylist, Hollywood, where him and Rob was in a relationship, and it was kept quiet, and he decided that he was going to go public with the relationship. Now I know certain parts of this is true because I Googled it, and his shop was in Daryl McDavid's building, which was Rob's manager. When he decided to go public, it was Rob, it was his manager Demetrius, and it was Kerry, all in the same room. Kerry is who told me the story. He decided, they got into a falling out, and he said, listen, what about the world finding out that you like men or whatever be the case? I'm finna tell everybody that R. Kelly, how you get out. And, they got into it, and next day he ended up dead. They went in there and shot him up at his spot, and he was on the phone with his mama when it happened. So that was an instance right there.
So the stylist was going to out R. Kelly, ended up dead.
Yeah. So
Do you have any regrets of going to work for or work with R. Kelly?
fuck yeah. I mean, regrets. I mean, yeah. I mean, you have a life. I'm 47 years old. I ain't never been in shit wrong, period. Never been locked up. I mean, did some juvenile stuff that everybody get in, trouble with, but my whole life I've been involved with major businesses, major corporations. I've raised a ton of fucking money. I can't even put my name on shit now.
Why? What happens when you put your name on something?
Well,
People know it?
Well, they Google that shit and they see that that's Donnell Russell, so they don't invest. This motherfucking, these bitches that's trying to get money now, they seize the money out of my fucking accounts. So, I mean, to be able to have everything and now you can't even go around and we have a nonprofit that deals with kids. R. Kelly's manager, nonprofit that went to jail for this bullshit. I mean, no, who the fuck? I can't go talk to nobody about, oh yeah, donate $500,000 to my charity from your charity. They don't want to have shit to do with it. So I had to step down from the company that I started. I had to step down from the foundation that I'm the chairman and the executive director of. And pretty much I can't do shit. I'm waiting to go to jail. And I'm a mirror image of all the shit that I've worked my whole life to accomplish and achieve.
So let's talk about that.
You going for 20 months?
May 10th, you are supposed to be turning yourself in. For
20 months?
20 months is what we read. Is
Yeah,
that
65, well, 85%, 75% of that. So.
Okay. And so let's talk about that because
you are married. You do have kids.
Bringing you into this. I mean, you guys are married. This is your wife. How long have you guys been married?
A year now.
About 8 months.
Yeah, no, almost a year now.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been together?
We're together a year, married 8 months.
More together longer than that, though.
Okay, so let's talk about
So all this was going on when y'all got together.
Right.
Okay.
That had to be tough too.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's been challenging. I mean,
Definitely.
I guess my first question would be just as a couple, I mean, going through all of this, even you knowing about this and choosing still to get in a relationship with them. I mean, talk about, I guess, the issues that it's caused and the drama. And I don't know, I know earlier you were talking about threats. I mean,
Right.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, so I mean, like you said, walking into it, I had no clue, that he was involved. He's a
You didn't?
He's a very humble guy, so talking to him, anybody who's around him would know that he's of a higher standard. So to be a part of that, it was shocking, but I was like, well, it don't sound like it was too much involved. So I basically accepted. To still be a part of his life. And, we were building and growing. Things were going pretty great for us. So, that wasn't going to stop me from, having a relationship. So
did you know about the charges and all of that walking into this or?
No. So as we, started, dating and getting serious, then, we would have conversations. And then that's when he told me about the court dates that was coming up. So, from that point on, I said, well, we're going to lock arms and I'm going to be here with you, every step of the way.
So what have you done to prepare? Because that's a decent amount of time to be gone. You said that when you was a kid, you did little silly stuff, but you ain't never been locked up.
No.
Right.
How do you prepare for that?
Well, I guess that's a dual question. How do you prepare for it?
Because both y'all got to
and
prepare
then how
for it.
do
Yeah.
you guys as a family prepare for it? Like, what are steps that you guys have taken to prepare for that? Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure walking into this, you didn't know that this would be, you might, I'm pretty sure you're thinking positive. You're thinking, okay, he's going to beat this case.
Right.
He's going to win. I'm pretty sure you were thinking that.
It was nothing. I
Yeah.
didn't think it was anything.
Yeah.
It hadn't. I mean, it was like, when they first brought it, I'm like, this is some bullshit.
Right.
Yeah.
I sat in the trial, so I'm literally listening to this. I'm like, oh, this is a piece of cake. Like, it's no way that they, can find him guilty. So we go to lunch, come back, we all, feeling positive, and we get back and they're like, yeah, guilty. And my heart was just like, whoa, wait a minute, what just happened? Like, so that at that point, that's when we started doing more research and finding out, like, he was pretty much framed. They had an agenda, and, they wanted to make sure that he be quiet during Rob's trial. So,
And y'all keep referencing this is they. Like,
I mean, because
The
we don't know
prosecutor.
whoever
The
the
prosecutor.
prosecutor,
Yeah,
but
the prosecutor. I mean,
like you said, it's somebody who
Federal prosecutor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
now, you mentioned something to me. I don't know if you want to talk about this or not, but you mentioned that you felt like your lawyer was in on this.
Well, and the reason I say that is because, one, after we sat down with some judges a few days ago, and they actually went through the case with us, and they pointed out a lot of shit that my attorney didn't. And it was damn near criminal, like that he didn't touch on certain things that would have killed this thing in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, he never killed the fact that I had only known it running around for 8 months. It was a whole complaint and a sealed complaint drafted. He should have killed that in the beginning. The complaint was bogus. I got convicted because of a bogus complaint stating that I was around him for 8 months, that I invested in his career and all this shit. That wasn't true. I should have.
Now, was this an attorney that was a R.Kelly affiliated attorney, or is this somebody you found on your own?
It was mine. I mean,
Okay.
I found him. I mean, I found him out in California, and I went to California. I'm thinking he won't know these guys from New York, and he won't play ball with them. And he claimed he was an ex-prosecutor, and and that he would we would be fine, And what I recall was right before the trial, he was dealing with the Bill Cosby case in California, the civil case. So he never had time, and like my trial started a week after Bill Cosby's. So he never had all of the means we were supposed to have to get prepared for it and all this shit. We never had it. So we going into trial like blind. We would sit down before the case and go through, points about the case and shit. And I done paid him $100,000. Right. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then about to give him another $100,000 for the next case. You know what I mean? So I'm sitting there like, we'd had a boy in when all of us walked out the court.
Right.
Like, this is, I mean, the only witness they had, it was like, first of all, I kept saying, who the fuck is after me?
Right. United States of America.
I mean, it's the prosecutor that's against me. It had nothing else to do with anybody else, but the prosecutor had a bone to pick because I didn't cooperate when they asked me to in the beginning. And the dude told me, say after the trial, the prosecutor said, you was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mm-hmm. You're not the guy we thought you was.
Have you thought about trying to refight this case?
So this is why I said my lawyer was in on it, because one, he told me that an appeal would cost too much and I wouldn't get it because what they gave me was beneath the federal guidelines. He's like, they gave you less than the federal guidelines. You should take it. And just, and I was like, I said, man, you want me to take on to jail at fucking damn near 50? Right. I'm like, nah, man, I can't take that. But he was like, you're not going to win it and they could possibly give you more time. And I was like, yeah, if you fight this, you're going to be right back in front of the same judge. You can get more time. I'm like, man, fuck. He's like, well, you have a certain amount of days to file the appeal. So at this particular point, I'm like, well, what do you appeal? I don't know shit about none of this. Appeals, what I've been here for, none of this. So that's when it's like, okay, we got to start doing research. But we're going to find out that kind of shit, and you don't even know where to look. Mm-hmm. And in 14 days, however long you had to file this fucking appeal. So it was like, at that point, it's like, I done exhausted my money. We went through a whole year not being able to raise no money because my name ain't attractive to nobody now. We had $1 million deals on the fucking table. Every last one of them pulled back. We built an oasis on the west side of Chicago, $25 million raised. Every last one of them pulled out. I mean, so to go from me trying to hold the company together and convince investors to stay on board, and now I got to fucking research this case and all that. It was, and I don't have the team I had because I ain't got employees no more. We have to let people go. It's like, how do you find a way to figure that shit out? You hire somebody who's supposed to do his job. Right. He didn't. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And when I sat down and talked to these new set of lawyers, and they showed me, these judges, they showed me all the shit where he fucked up. I was like, wow, he did fuck me. And I just specifically remember him telling me, if you go in front of this next judge, which is the one I pled guilty to, she's going to give you 5 years. I'm like, for what? I said, dude, I don't even know them bitches, though.
No evidence, no nothing.
No nothing. I said, I don't know that. He said, because she gave Rob 30 years, she going to give you 5.
So this was in New York?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I said, man, fuck, I ain't even been to I've never even been to New York. How the fuck am I out in New York going to fucking trial in New York and I've never even been there? Ain't done shit in New York. They don't even live in New York. Mm-hmm. I was like, fuck. So we sitting here like, what the fuck are we gonna do now? Right. This motherfucker that got all our fucking money. He basically telling me to throw myself under the fucking bus.
How much money have you exhausted in legal fees so far?
I mean, shit, we talking about over $300,000 total. I mean, you got to look at the
travel time.
Back and forth to
New
York. To New York.
A whole week trial, staying at the hotel, like all of that.
Yeah, I spent a lot of fucking money.
Do you have any money left to your name after all of this?
No, I got a dime. I'm broke as fuck. Not a penny. I mean, literally. So
what are the plans? Like, I mean, he's leaving.
How long you're gonna be gone total? Like 12 months?
I don't know. I mean, it's two kinds. It's two different guilties. You got Southern and Eastern districts, so they running together, which concurrent. Is the second. Mm-hmm. What is it when they run together?
Concurrent.
Yeah, they're running together. So they said, good time and 75% or 85% or whatever. Right. It could be as little as 14 months.
Okay, so a little over a year. So,
as much as 16.
How has that been like? What's the plans? What have you guys been doing? I'm pretty sure aside from spending as much time together, I mean, what does that look like?
Nothing but prayer. It's a lot of mental emotions going on, daily, 1 minute, and then as you get closer into the day, it's like we went from looking 6 months away to now being 30 days away to, having this, having to face this. And then, I was telling the attorney, I would prefer, because he had an option to be in Illinois. So we're like, okay, well, if he's somewhere in Chicago, then that's good. But he couldn't be, downtown Chicago because Rob was there. And then back in 2009, my mother was murdered by her boyfriend. So he's in Illinois. So I didn't want to be, in that same facility because, I mess around and bump into him and we're going to have problems, right? So got to go to, Minnesota. So we're talking about a 5-hour drive, empty bank, trying to plan our family to make sure that, we keep food in the refrigerator. Yeah. Eggs is like $10, so it's a lot, financially, mentally, emotionally, talking about an innocent man who has to serve time for something that he didn't do. And, you just stuck. You think going to an attorney would be the right way to go, and that failed, I mean,
even now, we've still been communicating with them, and every last one of them got a different story. It's like nothing is consistent. One guy told us about a route that we could take to even, get out of this, and we get to the next guy to question to make sure, because it's like I don't trust nobody now. Mm-hmm. These attorneys, they all work for each other. I don't give a shit what nobody says, and like, they determine up front whether they're going to let somebody ride or not. You know what I mean? And my attorney, I felt like, when I dialed it back and listened to how he was convincing me, everything that I could have did to get out of this, he did not do. By one, convincing me to take the fucking guilty on your terms, which I told him, let me talk to the judge directly, because he didn't want me to testify in either one of the cases. And I'm like, I said, well, first, they need to know that I don't sound like I'm from New York. Mm-hmm. Two, the question of why has not been answered to this jury. Mm-hmm. Why is the fucking prosecution picking on me? And it's because I wasn't cooperating. Ain't nobody told them that. So to the jury's mind, shit, maybe he did do it. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then I even heard one juror afterwards state that anybody associated with R. Kelly should be guilty. Mm-hmm. So it was like going into that shit, it was like it was fucked. I mean, and then the next case, plead guilty. And she gave you under the federal guidelines, and if you file an appeal, the appeal is not going to go through because the appeals judge is going to realize it was under the federal guidelines, and you're not going to win the appeal, and you're going to be back in front of her again, and she may decide to give you more time. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, I'm just fucked either way it goes, so I might as well go and say this $100,000 I might have to give to you, make sure my family good, and then take the guilty shit. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Because what I pled guilty to did not warrant time. It was house arrest or fucking ankle braces is what they talked about. I get in front of the fucking jury, then they get this heifer's mother to come and do all this crying, talking about somebody that tormented their family for 1.5 years. I'm like, first of all, I don't know you motherfuckers. We established in the other court, but see, the courts are disconnected.
Yeah, you can't bring all the evidence into
from that one over
here.
Right. So I'm like, first of all, I've been on bond for damn near 2 years now. Mm-hmm. I mentioned y'all, they would have snatched my fucking bond. Mm-hmm. So how are you lying and telling? And my attorney never said shit. Right. Like he could have said, Judge, this bitch is lying. Whoever, she's lying because my client can't even mention her per his bond conditions. So how's he gonna say the last 1.5 years I've been tormenting your family? How? Show me some phone records. And the judge is like, Mr. Russell, seems like you had and I had people from all over writing letters and stuff. You had a great history. You've never been arrested for anything, but you had a lapse in judgment, and I think you deserve 2 years for that. 20 months. Mm-hmm. 2 years would have put me over the federal guidelines where we could have appealed the shit and had a favorable appeal. But 20 months puts us under the federal guidelines. An appeals judge would have looked at it differently. That's what he explained to me.
Well, that sounds like that may have been intentional is what you think?
It was.
Definitely.
It was.
Do you have an ankle monitor on now? Do you have to be? Oh, okay.
Just can't travel to
certain
outside.
places.
Right.
Okay, I mean,
anything else?
Anything else you want? I mean, I think we pretty much
covered
everything. I mean, is there anything else you want
to
part
get
of
out?
this?
It's just I always say, people have agendas. Rob had an agenda. He wasn't clear on it. He wasn't clear on that in the beginning, which would have stopped this time. But all this stuff is for a reason. God is in control of everything, and you find out once you get further down the road why things had to take place. Another thing I wanted to touch on is that, my wife has done an exceptional job because she stepped up to the plate. And this was before that. I mean, I had got COVID when we first met. This is how our relationship propelled to the next level. We were just hanging out, messing around. And I got COVID, and I was in the hospital for 2 months. And she took my company's just taking on this big project. Got all these employees reporting this work. I'm stuck up I went to the hospital bed to get checked on. One thing, they said, man, if you leave here, you're going to be dead in less than a week. She was with me. Mm-hmm. I'm like, what? You're going to be dead in less than a week. I'm like, so they admitted me right then. I got my office, 16 employees, more than that, 22 employees starting Monday. My son got to go to school. It's just me and him. And I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. So she just basically snatched all that. She got my son, took him to her house, was driving from Chicago Heights to the west side of Chicago every fucking day in a Nissan Versa. I call it a skateboard.
Whatever.
In the fucking wintertime. Managing my whole goddamn team through development, through construction. I got out of jail and I was like, I'm at jail.
Out of the hospital.
All this jail talk.
You about to go, so.
All this jail talk.
Right. I went over to the office. I'm like, God damn, she doing a pretty good job. My son ain't missed a day of school. Everybody was in unison and shit. I'm like, I'll be damn. So she ran that shit for 2 months, put all her business aside. I was like, this is the one. I mean, all these years, it's like I ain't never thought about being a man. I was like, okay. So we just started hanging out more. I left her in as running the nonprofit, and because she just had a knack for it. I mean, it had nothing to do with anything else. I wasn't planning on putting her in that role. Mm-hmm. And she just seemed to flourish well with it and communicate better than I was with, the workers. And she knew the construction business because that was kind of along lines of what I'm in technology. She's in real estate and construction, so she was able to handle that. So she's done a remarkable job at keeping things afloat. She's at the office still now. Whatever stuff we still have lingering, it's because of her.
So how is that going to work? So you're going to be locked up, and then this civil suit will still be moving forward? Is that the final date coming up?
17th is the next date. It's not the final date.
So it'll still be going on while you're in the feds?
Potentially.
Okay.
So, yeah.
How they going to get money from somebody that ain't got $50 million?
Right.
It's a waste of time. It's a dog and pony show.
It really is.
Yeah, it's a dog and pony show. I mean, I don't...
Have you talked to R.Kelly?
No, not since he's been locked up.
So after that 8 months of you working for him, you never talked to him again?
Nope. One time. He called one time about his masters that I had in my possession. Well, I knew where they were, and he asked me to give them to Joycelyn. And I was like, no.
And she's still sticking by him? You don't know?
Yeah, I have no clue. I don't know what.
Do you think you were intentionally manipulated by R. Kelly?
Yeah.
Because do you think he thought like at some point, in some ways, you'd be the fall guy?
Let me tell you what I'm glad you asked that question because that is key. So as I stated earlier on, I had not realized that people were not stealing from him, and that's because when I actually started looking at it, I'm like, this company here that's getting 10% of your royalties started back when Barry was managing you. And this is a fraudulent company set up by your ex-stage manager and one of your background dancers. How did it last from Barry all the way to me? And I had never asked myself that question until like recently when I started sitting back going over things in my mind. I'm like, how did it last from Barry? He said he didn't know it existed. Barry to me, I'm like, I know other managers have been in these portals and found out shit because other shit has been attached to him to get pieces of his royalties too. That was hush money.
Yep.
That's how he paid people to shut up for the Battery Studios and all the other shit by making sure that they got that money. And when I came in and redirected that money all to him, I set myself on fire because now these motherfuckers is mad as fucking me because money they've been getting all these years is now cut off. So, yeah, he knew that shit. And what he also knew was Barry Hankerson, Artie Pabone, Linda Mintz, George Daniels, and all these other motherfucking names that's attached to him know where the bodies are buried. They were there. They could say the body is buried right there in that corner, dig 6 times and 1 to the left, and you'll find it.
Now let me ask you
I
something.
can't tell you that.
Bringing that up because you said that when we were on the phone. You said that you know where the bodies are buried.
No. I said I know that there are bodies buried. I don't know where they're buried. See, me going through contracts, and I'm knowing $7 million went to Leonard people. But I wasn't there when it happened to know the exact thing like Jomo, Barry Hankerson, and the other guy. I know that Johanna Pace got paid $250,000, and she got a truck along with that. I wasn't there to see why, though. Barry Hankerson, Dermot David was the one that negotiated that shit silently away from court. So they know the truth. I know the shit exists.
But you don't know the why.
Right. Or the where, or any of that shit. Right. See, these other ones do, so you protect them. You don't want them in locked up because they're going to tell the people all your shit. I can't tell them that shit. I can only give them certain details. I can't give them all of them.
So it sounds like to me it was a web of like lies within the contracts. It sounds like to me R. Kelly was never going to have any money. I mean, based on what you're saying.
He made money off of performances.
But in terms of him making music and selling records, it sounds like that money was gone out the door as soon as he put a record out.
So this is the biggest part of the puzzle that we never discussed. Rob, at the 39th year, it's a clause it's a grandfather clause that the industry has where every artist gets the ability to do terminations and get all of their masters back, and as well as their publishing. Rob's 39th year ended last year. This year while he was on trial. Mm-hmm. So at this point, he can never get his shit back. Sony owns it forever. So that's all a part of it as well.
Wow.
Do you think that was intentional?
Hell yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Sony paid for part of that shit with Lifetime too. It was too many things. We went out on a fucking tour. The last tour we made, which is another why I say he's a manipulating fuck. Me and Santee, which was his sound guy, they had did 2 tours where his sound people had never got paid from the shows. So this last tour, he broke. We trying to convince everybody to go out. I promised everybody was going to get paid. I ended up, his manager, which was, his accountant was John Holder out of Florida. His manager was Mason, Henry James Mason. It was the tour where he went from here to Phoenix, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, back up to Chicago. The back line is the stuff that goes on stage that allows them to do the show. So these motherfuckers went over to the back line people and put up a bad credit card. So they were trying to stop him from doing the concert because, one, they had stole so much money from the promoter. And we found this out when I contacted the promoter and got the original contract.
This is all in 8 months.
This is all in 8 months.
That's a long 8 months. This is a long 8 months.
This is a long-ass year.
Right, for us.
Shit we done. But
right.
The point of it is so we go out on this tour. I get the contract from the shows where his upfront money was $120,000. They put 60. His back end money was supposed to be paid 2 hours before the show. They put 2 weeks before the show because they didn't want him to go. It was a whole bunch of bullshit. So me and the promoter worked. I went to Rob and said, "Rob, they're trying to get you another lawsuit. Your managers are." So
why would they want that?
Because they don't want him to show. They already got their money. They want him. This is why everybody was working together. Let me tell you. So we get out on the tour. I get to the first location, which was Phoenix. I had to put my card up because none of these 20-year niggas that was around him had driver's license nor credit cards. So that's some typical Chicago shit. So I'm like, that's right. So I wasn't planning on going. I said we was down at the studio. We was talking about the tour. I had worked out everything with him. I said, Rob, y'all need to be leaving at a certain time to catch the show in Phoenix. The backline truck just pulled off because the credit card bounced. So I put my card up, rented a fucking, he wouldn't come back, so I rented a fucking U-Haul, big one. Picked the shit up, drove down to Phoenix 17 hours, just made the show, and I got the box office report about the sales, because that's who paid me back. For every time I would drive the truck there, they would pay me whatever their fee is to bring their truck down. So they paid me. I'm looking at the backline report. I'm like, what the fuck is Lifetime name at the top of this motherfucking report? I'm like, that's weird. So I called 3 other promoters. I said, yo, I took pictures. I said, why is Lifetime's name right there? I said, because Lifetime is doing the damn concert. So see, Lifetime had planted people in his camp. James Mason was a plant to show the demise of his career, and they captured that shit on video. So when we went to Phoenix, and I remember going in Texas, dropping the truck off, and I'm like, Rob, Lifetime's promoting this motherfucking show. He was like, well, we're going to act like we don't know because he needs the fucking money. So
they were trying to get exclusive video. Was that their goal?
Yeah, they wanted exclusive video of him failing.
Oh, so you get there and nobody's there at the show.
Right. We going to Texas. I dropped the truck off. I'm in the cab, the Uber going back. The Uber driver was asking me, who's in town tonight? I said, R.Kelly. He said, R.Kelly? Holy shit, I didn't know he was here. I said, these motherfuckers didn't promote the thing. So I'm wondering, like, how the fuck is this is a 10,000 seat auditorium and they ain't sold but 300 or 400 tickets the day of the show.
Intentionally, you're saying.
Exactly. They never promoted it or did shit. And then that's where they had this big thing set up in Texas where they went out on the stage and the girl's mother ran out and they got into the audience. Y'all heard about that. And the big fight and all that shit that took place. That was designed to show him coming out in handcuffs. I disrupted that. I didn't know because it was some chick on the stage that he was trying to holler at. When the police took everybody off stage, they took her. He was asking where she was to Santee, which is his stage guy. So I didn't know who. I thought it was maybe a family member. I went to go find them and bring them back. And outside, they had all these cameras set up with helicopters and shit. And Azriel's mother was in the car saying, he attacked me on stage and da-da-da-da-da and all this shit. And I'm like, no, that's not what happened. You ran on stage and attacked him. And the young lady was there too, and she told the same story I did. They ended up arresting her. I'm looking at Lifetime's banners all over the fucking place, and they were basically trying to show the demise of R.Kelly.
On camera.
Yeah.
So why never no lawsuit against Lifetime?
All that was coming. Had he not got, you got to realize, we dealing with money from shows. He ain't got no other money to hire lawyers, and we talking about an industry that wants him gone now.
But everything you're saying, you see why people thought you were the manager, right?
You did everything. In that 8 months, that was a long 8 months.
Yeah, it was.
That's why people thought you were the manager.
I can understand. I'm not here to dispute that. I'm here to set the record straight. I was not his manager. Manager gets paid.
You weren't getting paid.
He gave me over $300,000. No, I was investing.
Right.
And that time was still looked at as investing, but it didn't last that long.
And you didn't get your money back.
Never got shit. I got a building indirectly through that, which we turned around and, and was able to get some dividends off of that, but no, never.
So two more things we're going to touch on, and then
we'll let you
guys go.
Yeah.
Number one, since you have dug into this whole financial circus, have you seen where there were possibly payoffs for some of these girls?
Hell yeah.
All of them?
I said $100 million in promissory notes. That was to pay women off.
And how long was that going to last? Was this like he would still be paying if he had money to 2040?
Right now. Had I not redirected him into an account that he had, them payments would still be going out today. That was as of 2019. The first quarter in 2019, they never got any more money no more.
How many girls are we talking?
Well, okay, so we can't talk about girls. We talk about corporations that were set up.
Right. Shell companies.
Okay. Right, shell companies.
For the girls, got it.
So we had about 11 shell companies set up that was feeding out of the various portals.
Wow.
Yeah. And they would name themselves stuff like ASCAP Corporation.
So that goes back to how didn't you know then?
How did I know what?
How didn't you know if these companies were set up and this money was going out? You stopped it. What was his explanation for, why pay people off if you're not guilty?
That's my point. When I would go to him and say, Rob, what the fuck is ASCAP Corporation? ASCAP is a fucking foundation. Why is ASCAP Corporation getting money out of your royalties? I don't know. So I would go back and research, and it's not no one night thing. You go back and figure out.
Okay,
first you got to find out what
you
state
started
it's
digging.
in.
Got it.
And then you find out the state, then you find out the name. Rob, who is Cheryl Mack? Oh, that's Mack Source. So why the fuck does she own ASCAP Corporation and they getting 10% of your royalties? Oh no, it was too many of them. I'm like, dude, this is the dumbest shit I ever heard in my life. How the fuck $100 million of your money that's why we would fall out. Going to these shell companies, you have no fucking clue about none of this shit.
So that was the manipulating part you were saying.
It was bullshit until, like I said, later on when I started thinking about it, that was hush money. That wasn't him paying them, somebody putting them in there to steal from him. That was hush money to stop them from telling about them fucking 15-year-olds that they witnessed him fucking.
So
That's why ain't none of their asses
do
on
you
trial.
feel like
so
these parents were aware of this?
Fuck yeah.
So the parents know.
All of them knew. This ain't no, we talking about, this man ain't at the door letting people in. It's got to go through this person, or a handler to get to him. Your daughter gone for 4 or 5 days, and you knew last thing you saw was at an R.Kelly concert. Wouldn't you be on some shit with this nigga? Yeah. I mean, it ain't like he ain't got that history already.
Well, in the portal too. So the portal, because I'm not familiar with the portal. You've explained it to where I understand it. So does that mean that the record companies would have access to know that information is in the portal?
It's their portal.
So they knew these shell companies were set up, essentially.
Yes.
Got it.
They
knew
had
the
to-
hush money payments.
Yes. That's why I said the labels were fueling this shit. Sony fueled that shit. Universal knew that he had that. Eric Cut, one of the lawyers for Sony, had to sign off on those being those
Disbursements.
exactly those disbursements.
So essentially, Sony was a part of this because
They was getting paid. They was getting money out of it.
because they were getting money, and if
Sony
this-
making billions off
and
this
if
man.
he had went to jail earlier in his career, that would have stopped
Their money.
It would stop their money, one, but the bottom line is he's approaching 39 years.
They get to keep the royalties.
They get to keep his music. Fuck the royalties.
I mean, yeah,
The
the
catalog
catalog.
is worth billions.
Right, that's what I meant to
Got it.
say.
They don't think about R. Kelly today. 20 years from now, it's going to be another motherfucker singing I Believe I Can Fly. And then his generation ain't going to know shit about R. Kelly. They didn't kill R. Kelly. His brand is dead. They own him for his everything
The
he
music.
created. He created timeless music, and they own it forever. Same thing with Michael Jackson. Same thing with James Brown. Same thing with Prince. Same thing with Sam Cooke. Same thing with Whitney Houston. They own their catalogs forever.
So he was basically
It sounds like you're saying he was intentionally doomed so they could keep his
Well,
catalog.
he was intentionally doomed because of who he was.
Right.
Had he been a smart motherfucker and paid attention,
He would
to
have
his
been in
shit,
a better position.
Exactly, but his karma put him in that position, and he's dealing with his shit. That's
So
what
you
he's
don't
doing.
feel sorry for R. Kelly?
No, fuck no. No, he does need to see some psychiatric treatments right now, yeah. But do I feel sorry for him? No, he right where he deserved to be. Shit, all that shit that he's done, I sat there and watched that man promise to pay them people. They got off their fucking jobs, went down there, did that last tour for his ass, put money in his pocket. He didn't pay them shit. That's like y'all walking out here and they don't get their chop. That's wrong. You don't do no shit like that. These guys live out at the bottom. They not taking no 40 or 50,000 to show home. A couple thousand to feed their family. They flew in, they get paid for the whole tour. And yet he out taking these bitches on $70,000 shopping sprees and shit. So no, he deserved to be that. Just from that alone, from the little bit that I saw alone, and that ain't much because I didn't go in there sleeping. I didn't go in there trying to be his friend. I didn't go in there trying to smoke cigars and shoot hoops with him. Nigga, where are we gonna get this money from? And if we ain't finna get this quick, I'm finna be out of here. It just so happened all of the shit was coming in quicker than we could figure it out, and we was never gonna pivot. And when we realized that, I'm out. I can't do this shit no more. On top of he's a sick motherfucker who need help.
If R. Kelly was able to keep paying them girls, do you think he would be behind bars?
Yeah. Yeah, he went behind well,
Because it seemed like a lot of people, from what I'm just thinking about the timeline that you've painted here today. Based on the timeline that you have painted here today and all of those shell companies, which, according to you, links back to people that were hush people that need to be quiet,
Right.
based on what they knew, or maybe being victims of R. Kelly. It sounds like to me, shortly after they were cut off, that's when everybody started singing, according to your timeline.
right. Well, they had already been singing. It was coming close to us hearing the music. But it's like when you cut a song, you cut that in the studio, and you may do the verse one day, the background another day, the rap another day. It all got done a long time ago, and that was in with the FBI and Homeland Security as a part of that shit. We may not hear it for a whole another year. So they did the singing, and they told them people what they needed to do, and we heard the song a year later. And that's what's going on today with him being locked up. But this shit been planned. This wasn't no just the feds woke up one day and targeted R. Kelly. They had to put people in to give them information, to get iPads, to get access to this, to set his ass up to be in a room with this person, to make sure he did this, send him this note so we can get this back from him, go suck his dick, get this on your shirt. All this shit, that was set up for years. That had been set up. I walked into this shit and didn't know it because I wasn't a part of none of that shit. When I finally started figuring out what's going on, it was like, oh, this is way too stupid. it was over with by then.
Last question. I don't know if it's any relevance to this. I know we were talking about the young lady earlier who pressed charges against him, or sued him, I should say, for the whole herpes situation. I remember you mentioning something like that over the phone. I don't know if there's any relevance to this or not as it relates to the whole herpes case. You remember that?
Yeah, I know
She's suing you.
Yeah,
That person.
for $50 million.
Right.
I know you were saying something like
I got
you
to pay
understood
$50 million.
because you've been through that, or something you said.
Well, what I was saying was, okay, as a part of this goes back to the beginning. All these lawsuits and shit were coming in. We reading through them, and the ones that would have been disruptors to what we were doing, we made phone calls about. One of them was this young lady who had herpes, and he supposedly gave it to her, and she was suing for $250,000. Now to me, you gave me herpes, $250,000. The last thing, I'm taking your ass to court or whatever. My father gonna show up, put something in your head, something. But I'm not understanding this $250,000 demand for herpes. And the reason I said what made me roll up my sleeves even harder was because I own a business. I had an ex-girlfriend who lied and sued me for $50,000 and said I gave her herpes. So the same shit. So you hitting all these things that's making me feel like protecting you even more because I done been through this shit. So that's why what kept me up night after night trying to protect this motherfucker, because I'm looking at all this shit thinking, I've been through the same shit. Fuck this bitch. That's how I looked at it. It was a lawsuit that came in demanding $250,000, and you're gonna use herpes as a way to get the shit. I don't have no fucking herpes. I asked him, did he have it? He said no. He lied. Found out later that he did. It was a different strain from hers though. So and then her sister came out and said that bitch was trying to give him herpes. I mean, so it's like all this shit that comes out in the paper, but I had no clue about it. I'm not searching the tabloids every day looking for this. I'm here dealing with the shit that's right in front of us. How do we get this motherfucker clear so you can put this music out on my platform, 16 million. We're going to chop that up and figure out the rest as we move with gas.
So essentially, you were the problem solver in some instances. You were sitting down. Y'all were having these meetings. Y'all were saying, hey, all right, we got this issue. We got this issue. We got this issue. I got to get my money back. I got to get this $300,000 back. That's what I'm worried about. So we got to make sure this is dealt with. We got to make sure this is dealt with. We got to make sure this is dealt with. Otherwise, we all go down. I don't get my money back.
So I know we all go down. I don't get a return on our investment.
You don't get a return on your investment.
It wouldn't go down to it. It's like these are lawsuits.
Well, he can't get in trouble right now.
I had no idea there was a criminal investigation that was a part of this whole scenario. There's no inkling of a clue. If that was the case, you don't go dive in the fucking water when you know the FBI and Homeland Security then put red tape around the motherfucker.
When that music came out on Apple, did you know anything about that? When they dropped the record, what was it, like 2 months ago or so?
No, I ain't done shit about nothing with Rob since 2018.
Got it.
Nothing. I mean, since I left. I ain't gave a shit about none of that since then. It's been about getting my shit. I mean, we've accomplished a lot. I mean, my own company getting back on track to where we were before COVID. COVID happened. That was like a little getaway, you know, and so that was kind of, the timing was almost cool because my business had kind of went down because of COVID. Then him, you know what I mean, you know, I think COVID happened a year after that. I mean, so it was cool.
What was this is the last question, and then we'll let you go. What was the whole, you said the signature manipulation. You said that was part of the manipulation. He acted like he couldn't spell Sylvester, which was his middle name.
Right.
And you said, I'm going to put that on pause and come back to it. So what, that was a lie?
Yeah.
He actually could spell his name.
Oh, man. This
Can he read?
Yeah, he can read.
So he can read and write.
Fuck yeah. Hell yeah. So we.
So why has he
Wait a
been?
minute.
So
Let me tell you how
why
fast.
has he been lying? Because I've heard this before.
Let me tell you.
That he can
So
read and write.
Several times. We've heard he was illiterate.
Let me tell you, that's a whole lie.
Well, I've
So,
heard
let
several
me tell
times
you-
that he's not illiterate too.
Right. So this is what happened. This is how I found out. We getting towards the point where me and him are fighting like all the time. Because I'm like, Rob, this shit is stupid as fuck. How the fuck is it? Whatever. We're going back and forth. Whatever the issue is today, it's a new issue that he don't know nothing about. Not adding up. So he calls me to the studio one day. Me and my mom, we were both down there. And we were sitting in there, and he started reading out his issues with me. He reading them out, but he reading them from his phone. I'm looking. He got to issue number 3. I said, motherfucker, you can read. He said, how long you been waiting to say that? See, you analyzing me too much. I can't take this shit. D, you need to slow down, D. You keep getting ahead of me. I said, Rob, if you a lazy learner motherfucker, say it, but stop making people think you can't read and write. I said, all this contract shit, you could have read it. I don't like reading long shit. Well, say that, goddammit. Stop lying. So what he does is make you feel like he can't read, so you can lie to him about something in the contract, and he act like he can't read it, and now he know what kind of person you are. You just lied to me. That's bullshit. That's a manipulating ass shit. He want to see if you going to purposely lie to him about money or something in the contract. He go back and read it, he know what it says, and he acting like he don't know what it says because he can't read. That's a manipulating motherfucker right there.